But this seems to be running a little low on ink, so I'm actually going to now switch to the Menso Fude. And for me, the Menso Fude is the ultimate. This can do everything. It can make very large areas of black, and it can also make very thin line work as well. So for me, this is the ultimate weapon. And just to kind of give you a taste of what all the different tools do, I'm using them all to sporadically while doing this. But if I were to do this on my own, probably 90% of the work would be done with this Menso Fude. So we go back and you can see that there was the work that we do with the marker here. We could do that same type of thing with the Menso Fude. Let's see if we can find another area that we want darker. Maybe make some shadows under here. But with the Menso Fude, you have the added benefit of being able to do these small areas as well as baking large blocks of shadow, just like we did with the brush pen earlier, like so. And then I could go into the little details up here. So I'm going to keep playing with this a little bit more with the Menso Fude. Try to get more of the darker shadows in up here. So the light, where should the light be coming from? I already put these black areas here with the forest. But I guess since this forest doesn't make a big difference. So I think I'm still going to think of the light coming from the left side. Now, although I said that the moderate pen is generally very good for the small hatch work, you can see here that the Menso Fude is also able to do a fair amount of hatch work as well, even when it's very small and thin lines that are necessary for it. Okay, this is another bit of a shading technique that I learned. You take your scrap paper and shield off the area that you want to start your shading at. And then from here we're going to strike swift lines across here. with just a little bit of ink, not too much, so it's not going to be too thick. So you can see how you have some swift lines across there that are being started from this area here. Generally you get more or less the same effect that you could get with tone. Okay. But I could probably just keep going on using the Menso Fude for most of this, but I want to show other tools as well. So let's try the glass pen now. Glass pen I also do enjoy quite a bit. The glass pen gives you similar types of line work that you would get with the G pen, but it gives you more mobility of being able to move the pen in various directions without having to shift the paper around as much as you would with your regular nib pens. So let's see if we can clean up the messy line work I have in here with these details with the windows and architecture. I feel like the glass pen works somewhere in between a nib pen and a marker. It feels very similar to a marker, but has some aspects of it that are more like a nib pen. Oh, I don't know when it happened, but apparently I smudged all the ink I just put down up there. I must have turned it at some point. So, what do you do in that situation? Well, you could try to work with the black and just make it a shadow or something, or we could wait for it to dry and then clean it up with white ink later. And I think I'm going to do the latter and wait for it to dry and then clean up with white ink later. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, the bushes over here, I'm doing a little bit of the Kakeami crosshatch that we were talking about earlier. Although I'm modifying the shape of it quite a bit to kind of get that bush type feel to it. Okay, see if we can't get back here and fix this up now. Use our white ink. Just dab that over. Okay, and wait for that to dry and then try to go over it again. Okay, I think I'm probably overdoing the cross-hatching on the building now, so I'm going to go down to the forestry and the nature elements around it and focus a little bit more on that now. And for that, I find that nothing seems to do it better for me than the Menso Fude. You can of course do this with a modern pen or sketch pen or anything else you'd like, but for now I'm going to use this. And we're going to start in the upper left hand corner so as to avoid any more smudging. There's some scary tree branches in the background. With the brush, you really gotta move your strokes along with the flow of the hairs. It's really hard to describe, but like, you don't brush like this, and you could do like this if you want to get those types of effects, but when you're making line work with the brush, it's very much about feeling that it's kind of like putting down the hair and then letting it drag, and then when you're making a curve, you kind of have to go along with that curve, like this. You can't just kind of go like that, because then you lose your line. It's kind of like directing. It's kind of like dragging, like a slug almost. Yeah, it really is. When you're doing the line work, anyways. Of course, because if you don't, then you start getting stuff like that, and I mean that could be an effect that you want, but depending on the type of line you want. If you're trying to just get straight up line work, then it's really a lot of like dragging along like a slug almost, or just doing stroke by stroke and adjusting the position of your hands as you go. So if you have the sketch pen, you don't have to worry about that as much. Sketch pen, you do have to kind of change your positioning and everything, but then the sketch pen doesn't have quite as much diversity of line and shape that you can get with the brush. And that's sort of the trade-off of whatever tool you're going to use. If you're going to use a sketch pen, the reason why so many manga artists use sketch pen over just like marker or like inking pens and stuff is that, especially in Japanese manga, the variations of width of line is extremely important. And so if you just have if you just have straight like lines that are the same width all around, like that what you produce with like a marker or a MIDI pen, that's generally not the style that most people in Japan are looking for, and that's one of the first things that they'll bring up when you come into a publisher with your work. They'll look at your line width, and if you don't have those variations in your line width, that's going to be an issue. And so that's why a lot of, I mean, even with marker, I guess you could kind of accomplish similar things. Like, say, if I took this MIDI pen, if I just drew a circle, this isn't a very good MIDI pen, let's get the other one. So if you just draw a circle, there isn't really much wide, I need a better pen. You can't see with that. Let's get a marker, okay. So if I just draw a circle, there's not a whole lot of chain of width variation in that. But then you can go over it again and kind of like say, okay, the shadow's going to be at the bottom, so the bottom's going to have this like width to it, and then it's going to even out on the top. And it's definitely doable, but when you use tools like sketch pens or even brushes, you can get that in one stroke, which is in the long run going to be faster than going over it twice with a pen, even with a marker or pen, even though initially the marker or the pen is going to feel like it's a lot easier. But once you get used to these, you can create a lot more variation with less work. And that's why eventually I kind of moved over to the brush. Is that one, I came from a fine arts background, so I've been using brushes since I was, I don't know, like 10, and I hadn't been using sketch pen. So when I tried to use a sketch pen with the nibs and everything, it was tough, but I worked through it and I got used to using it. But then I discovered that you could use a brush, and the brush, it's also kind of like, in terms of just average difficulty, like regardless of what your background is, I'd say brush probably is more difficult than a sketch pen. If you're saying that if you've never touched a brush before and you've never touched a sketch pen, the sketch pen is probably going to be easier. But the brush gives you a even larger variation of line width and line shapes than even the sketch pen can do. And so I find that it's worth the extra effort of learning how to do line work with a brush. Although there are strengths and weaknesses, because the brush's weaknesses a lot is the difficulty to do really straight lines. I mean, you can't. It's not that you can't do it, because usually what I do is I just kind of get a straight stroke, just kind of keep practicing that, and I can get straight lines. But you see, you have like the brush wants to make curves. I feel like, and so because it's such a softer tip and everything, it's not as rigid as a sketch pen would be.